All right, friends, who's ready for the What's Right show? Yes, I am, for one. Sam Murjovsky here. News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Great to be here with you this beautiful Tuesday, May the 13th. Earlier today, you've probably seen the video, the images of Trump landing in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So Air Force One, as soon as it hits Saudi airspace, is joined by F-16 fighter jets of the Saudi Air Force that is there to welcome Trump to Saudi Arabia, the escort Air Force One. Beautiful video of this all over the internet, actually chilling stuff. So they come in. They're waving to, Air Force One. Air Force One lands. This is very important because something happened today that it's not unprecedented, but certainly did not occur during the last administration. Mohammed bin Salman, who is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, the de facto ruler of the country, went to the airport, to the tarmac, to personally greet Donaldus Maximus as he descended the stairs of Air Force One. There was a full-on arrival ceremony. Trump's limousine showed up and then whisked Trump away with horses, some kind of pageantry, the military, everything. The symbolism of this is incredible. Now, what does it all mean? For 4 years, the world was going to hell while we had a blithering idiot, dementia patient running the White House, allegedly. And no one respected us. And when I say no one, I mean countries that matter. They're going to say, but Sam, the Saudis, well, a little bit of a testy relationship with human rights. They're going to say, these people are dangerous and whatnot. Okay. We deal with all sorts of regimes and governments that are dangerous. What we need in the world are friends. Why not make friends with a country that is clearly under the Crown Prince's leadership in Saudi Arabia right now, a country in the Middle East, making a deliberate effort to de-radicalize the Arabian world? If you listen to this guy, if you see what he's doing, if you follow some of the advancements of, for example, women's rights in Saudi Arabia, this is a guy, this Crown Prince, MBS, those are his initials that he goes by, MBS, declared not too long ago that women can wear what they want. They can dress in Western clothes. Well, it's something small, but it's not insignificant, okay? This is a modernizer. If we're going to beat radical Islam, which I have maintained forever, as long as I have been on the air, as a very dangerous, perhaps the most dangerous ideology that threatens the West. If we're going to attack this, we need allies that are themselves Islamic. And we see eye to eye with the Saudis on this. Is it a perfect relationship? Absolutely not. But clearly, based on what I am seeing here, I witnessed this here as Trump is showing up at the airport and then welcome to the palace. There was a kind of a humorous situation where they made some ceremonial coffee. Coffee's big in this part of the world. They make coffee. And you know this about Trump. He doesn't drink coffee. He doesn't drink alcohol. He doesn't drink coffee. He's very particular about what he doesn't have. So anyway. So Marco Rubio had the coffee. He took the coffee, but Trump didn't. But it was a beautiful ceremony, and it put America in our rightful place of being taken seriously. And I know I'm already, and tonight, of course, you'll hear all over the evening news from the mainstream media. You will hear things like, see, America has abandoned Europe, and instead we're crawling up into bodily crevices of the of the Saudi royals. And I laugh at this because Europe right now cannot figure out how to save itself from some of the most terrible enemies within. And we, the United States, are the problem. Meanwhile, Trump is in the heart, in the belly of the beast, building relationships, making allies with people that can actually do something about, again, I'm telling you, it all comes down to radical Islam. The threat to Western Europe, if we're going to get into this, you won't hear this on CBS News. The threat to Europe is not Vladimir Putin. It's Muhammad, okay? Well, not a guy named Muhammad, the prophet Muhammad, the ideology, right? Islam as it is practiced by these Syrians and others that have come to Europe, and much as illegal immigrants have flooded the U.S., these people are coming in and they are, they're not assimilating. They're not learning the language. They're not adopting the culture, and they are demanding that Sharia law be practiced and all this stuff. So, look, this is in sum and total. If we want peace in the Middle East, we need to, and if we want to defeat radical Islam, we need the Saudis, and Trump's doing it. So the Wall Street Journal here touting, of course, the part of this that involved. I'm seeing some people say 300 billion, and the other figure I saw 600 billion. That there is a trade deal and an investment commitment that the Saudis are committing to making. There was, this is not insignificant. When Biden was vice president, and he still was cogent, Biden traveled around the world shaking down world leaders and top businessmen to put money into his family's pockets. That's how Biden operated when he went to foreign countries. Trump is going around like America's salesman, and he's going around places saying, invest in America. He is America's cheerleader, which is what the president ought to be. I've always thought of this. For example, bringing it close to home, when we look at the mayor, for example, of Las Vegas, or the governor of Nevada, and people say, Sam, well, what do you think that position is all about? And I say, first and foremost, you're a salesman, a brand ambassador for Las Vegas. You're a salesman and a brand ambassador for the state of Nevada. Your job ought to be traveling the country if you're in one of those positions and going, invest here. Come to Nevada. Build your factory in Nevada. Why are you still in California? Acme paperclip company, whatever it is, right? Why are you still in California? We will make you a deal to come to Nevada. We will give you tax breaks. We will give you incentives. We will do whatever. We want you in Nevada. That is what our leaders, our local and state leaders ought to be doing here. And for the most part, I believe they are. But we had a president for 4 years that went around the world basically either giving stuff away or wagging his little naggy finger at people. Oh, Saudi Arabia, you need to do better. You have human rights. And we lost friends everywhere. And places where we had friends, we also didn't have any respect. They smiled at us to our faces and then laughed and sneered behind our backs. This is different. Now, it all ties in together. I tell you, America is back. We are back. This is the beginning of the golden age. And you and I, we are so lucky to be alive and experiencing this firsthand. It doesn't matter that we weren't on the tarmac at Riyadh. It is happening as we live and breathe on this planet, seeing history happen, unfold before our very eyes. It's absolutely spectacular. So just, if I can say something, take a minute every day, soak this in, enjoy it, let the Trump era kind of wash over you. Just enjoy it, because I truly do grieve for the people who are TDS afflicted. The folks that are deep into Trump derangement syndrome are not appreciating the miracle that this is. We have a generational opportunity to save our country, and it's happening before our very eyes. Sam Murjovsky, News Talk 840, The What's Right Show will be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We got a lot to cover today, folks. I promise it's going to be a good show.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Well, you know what that music means. Don't look at me like that. Show's on. Sam Murjovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Ramon, that doesn't mean we need to just completely make the music go away. We can still play it. Oh, there we go. Perfect. A little bit of it playing. All right. Love it, folks. Welcome back. What's Right Show on News Talk 840, KXNT, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Your happy place. Admit it. I had one of, who was it? Somebody emailed me about it saying that the show was their happy place. But they listen on podcasts on Spotify. So I appreciate the compliment. I got to dig that email up because it was very nicely put. And thank you so much for expressing that. By the way, my email's sam@whatsrightshow.com. sam@whatsrightshow.com. I do check my emails. I read them, even if I can't remember which one of you had written me the particular thing, but I've got it on my head. I've got it all in here. Okay. Let me say this here as we are observing Trump being welcomed warmly to Saudi Arabia by the Crown Prince himself, Mohammed bin Salman, who is quite a powerful world leader, mover and shaker, the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia. I want to rewind the clock. When Biden came into power in 2021, a little bit of history here. You remember what happened? Well, during his campaign, Biden called the Saudis, or Saudi Arabia, a pariah state. That was his position. He said that we here in the U.S. were going to hold Saudi Arabia accountable for human rights abuses. And so what did we do? Well, Biden, well, it was in the wake of the Jamal Khashoggi killing. He was the Wall Street Journal. I think he was with the Journal, or was he with the Washington Post? I think Washington Post journalist who had been. I think it's indisputed that he was really violently murdered inside a Saudi embassy, and perhaps dismembered by members of the Saudi security forces. Okay, so in the wake of that occurring, Biden, basically turns his back on Saudi Arabia, and then something else happens. Russia in 2022 does what? Well, it invaded a country called Ukraine that suddenly every American, every Westerner knows where it is, because up until that point, a lot of people didn't. So now everybody knows where Ukraine is. They know Russia's in, and all of a sudden, what do we have to do? Well, we got to put in sanctions. So Biden puts in sanctions. And all of a sudden, we need oil. At the same time, by the way, Biden is pursuing a green agenda in the United States and is cutting domestic oil production. So that was all in the beginning of 2022. All of a sudden, we need oil. And then I think it was come July of that year, summer, maybe August, Biden has to go to Riyadh, hat in hand, begging for oil production, because OPEC has decided to cut oil production. So oil prices are skyrocketing. We got the midterms coming around the bend. This is around the time where he ultimately starts releasing strategic oil reserve supplies in order to drive down the cost of oil so Democrats can perform better during the midterms. You all know this history. I'm just laying this out for the uninitiated. Anyway, Biden goes to Riyadh, gets a cold welcome from the Saudis, and he gives a fist bump, a little Obama fist bump to Mohammed bin Salman. A fist bump. Well, what does that signal? The president of the United States won't even shake your hand. Well, tensions persisted. They actually, by the way, I think in later that year in October, OPEC, under the big influence of Saudi Arabia, decides to cut oil production. So they, well, when you cut production, right? Then, and you still have a high supply, high demand. What happens to prices? Well, supply's up. Demand is up. Supply is down, albeit artificially. Doesn't matter. Supply goes down. Prices go up, right? So that's where we're at. You know, this is where the inner pragmatist in me comes out. Do I think hacking a journalist to pieces with an electric saw is a good look? No, I don't. I don't like that at all, one bit. But if we're going to, as a country, say, all right, we're going to take a stand against Putin, we're going to stop Vladimir Putin, and we're going to put an embargo on Russian oil, what do you think is the next thing that's going to happen? Well, we're going to have to find that oil somewhere else, right? And we might need to go to one of the top oil producing countries in the world, i.e. Saudi Arabia, or at least go to the cabal of mostly Middle Eastern countries that produce oil, OPEC, and beg them for increased production. Remember, OPEC exists to regulate and keep artificially high the price of oil. They got together, created a monopoly, and said, we will decide how much oil we produce in order to keep prices at a certain level. Because if they produced all the oil that they possibly could produce, prices would plummet. There's a lot of oil there. The same people that told us that by the year 2000 we were going to be in an ice age, and then the same people that told us that the rainforests would disappear by the time, 1998, and the same people that told us that, that the ozone was going to completely deplete within 10 years, now are telling us also that oil was going to disappear. It's there, though. There's an absolute abundance of oil in the ground. But it's production of it is restricted. It makes sense. So these idiots running Joe Biden, whoever it was actually running the country, okay, decide that they're going to stick a poke in the eye the 800-pound gorilla of oil production. At the same time, they're going to decide to go pick a fight. And I'm not saying, look, it's not saying that Putin didn't start it, okay? But decide to then take issue with what Putin is doing in Europe, in Ukraine, and put sanctions on him. My point is, the takeaway from this is that Biden and the Biden administration did not in any way, shape, or form think in strategic ways. And Trump, by contrast, understands that you need to have good relationships with the people that you need, and he knows who we need. And I'm telling you, geopolitically, if we want peace in the Middle East, if we want Israel to be safe, if we want to neutralize radical Islam, and if we want to have petroleum products, i.e. oil, gas in our cars, then we need to have a good relationship with the Saudis, whatever our differences ideologically might be. And this is where Trump, as a pragmatist, as a businessman, as everything that he is, this is where it all comes out. And this is where he shines. And this is where having Trump in the White House is such a critical difference. So, yeah, I mean, and of course Saudi Arabia needs us too, but there's a way to play this relationship. So now we're walking away. Trump's got an investment. Things are happening. And by the way, Elon Musk was there too and spoke at a conference, a Q&A. It was really a nice thing to behold. He got a hero's welcome. I mean, the Saudis really do want to turn their economy from one that is 100% about oil and move it to a more innovation-based economy. So anyway, just America's back, baby, is my point. Now, what about this David Hogg guy? Oh my gosh, be right back in a moment. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Murjovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. My email, sam@whatsrightshow.com. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. Email me comments, questions, concerns. I do read the emails, your emails personally, and try to respond as best as I can to as many of you as possible. Now, I'm going to get to David Hogg's ouster from the Democratic Party in a moment. I want to give this the proper credit that it deserves. It's really the perfect backdrop, if you will, to Trump on stage reorganizing the world order on his first first stop of his Middle East trip. And mentioning, of course, if you're just joining us, Trump was in Saudi Arabia, or is in Saudi Arabia, and had his arrival this morning was nothing short of glorious. It was glorious. It was respectful. It was appropriate. This is how allies treat allies. Something that I, going back the last 4 years in the Biden years administration, was not done. But he gave a great speech. Trump got into it and gave an absolute scathing rebuke of globalism and interventionism, right? The neocon Democrat type uniparty response to to nation building that we've spreading democracy, etc. He's got some great quotes in this. He said, "It is crucial for the wider world to know," and this is speaking of the improvements that Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and these places have made, "that this great transformation has not come from Western interventionalists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs." Who could he be referring to? People flying in on beautiful airplanes, giving lectures. I think Klaus Schwab from, yeah, I don't know. Even the Bush people, right? George Bush would fly in on Air Force One to Iraq, to Afghanistan. We're gonna show you guys how to live. Americans bled and died for it. Taxpayers were bled dry financially. Our children's futures mortgaged. $1 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. Plus, right? Did it work? No, it didn't. Right? This is what Trump is getting at. So then he goes on to say, he says, "No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders." Ooh, that's a zing at Trump. At Bush, excuse me. "Neocons or liberal nonprofits like those who spend trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, and so many other cities." Well, told you. And he says, "The credit is due to the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions, and charting your own destinies in your own way." What is he saying? Trump is saying, you know what? God bless you for making your country better. And we want to be friends. I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm not here for you to adapt to or adopt our American way of life, our Western way of life. We just want to be friends. We have enough common ground to be friends, and we respect you as allies. We're not just dropping in and imperiously demanding that you do things our way. By the way, this is one of my principal problems with Islam, and this is what I always have to think. My criticisms when I have them of something, of an ideology, you have to be able to always look at things from both sides. So when my principal problem with Islam is you have immigrants that come to Western Europe and they demand that their hosts adapt to their way, to the Sharia way, to the Muslim way of living. They want to basically overthrow the culture and the governments of these countries. And this isn't some like kooky idea that I have in my head, folks. If you listen to what they're saying, I saw a guy leading up to the Canadian election in Canada, an immigrant from one of these godforsaken countries in Canada, enjoying the good life, probably getting 30, 40,000 Canadian dollars a year in welfare benefits. Well, a lot of them get it. I'm just telling you, but that doesn't matter. Anyway, he's on camera in English saying, yeah, no. Eventually there's going to be enough of us and we're just going to make this country Islamic and follow Sharia law. So just, stay tuned. So why do we get to go to Saudi Arabia and tell them do things our way? Hey, if as long as you guys don't want to kill us, we can get along. What's my favorite saying? It's literally my favorite. It's how I govern my life. You cannot coexist with people who want you dead. And by extension, you can pretty much get along with everybody else. You have to agree on everything. You don't have to, there doesn't have to be a 95% alignment even. As long as you're okay with me existing, I'm okay with you existing, okay, now we can work at it. That's why the entire idea of Palestinian peace, and Israel-Palestine peace is nonsense. Because the Palestinians, Hamas, the PLO, Hezbollah, they don't want peace with Israel. They want to destruct Israel. This is a very important point, and we're kind of to the essence of it here. And so Trump goes to Saudi Arabia and gives a speech, and there's Crown Prince MBS clapping in the crowd listening to the speech. He loves it. Here's Trump, quote, "In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they didn't understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea of how to do it themselves." This is beautiful. The Bush people didn't know what they were doing. And you know how we know that? Because look at Iraq today. You can marry a 9-year-old there, okay? A 67-year-old man can marry a 9-year-old, okay? Yeah, bang up job you did, Bush Republicans. And Afghanistan, well, yeah, that didn't work out. It's worse than ever. Quote, "Peace, prosperity, and progress came not from a radical rejection of your heritage," right, speaking to the Saudis and Middle Easterners by extension, "but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly." By the way, as the Crown Prince is clapping, you can see Elon Musk in a suit and tie, mind you, clapping and engaged in the background. This is really, really an important day. I cannot possibly more emphatically tell you that America is back. We've got the right perspective. Trump is the president we have been waiting for. And by the way, Republicans, this is who we are. We aren't interventionists. We are not this. And I'm embarrassed. I've come clean on this many, many times, and I'll continue to wear a hair shirt on this one because as a 20-year-old young man, 21, 22, I supported Bush, voted for him twice, would have voted for him a third time. was appalled by Obama. Listen, I've never not voted for a Republican for president, so it is what it is. But I supported it. I supported Iraq. I supported the invasion, and you got to hand it. I mean, I was still fairly young and dumb, so I guess I have some excuse. But Trump was one of the few adults in the room who articulated a position against it in the moment. And that is one of the, I think perhaps one of the most important things to know that about Trump is that he was right when so many people were wrong. So many super smart people were wrong. And Trump saw it in a clear-eyed way. And at the same time, as a New Yorker, post 9/11, full of undoubtedly the same piss and vinegar that we all were and rage that we all felt for what the 9/11 hijackers did to us and to our fellow countrymen. Being able to see clearly in the fog of war, because it was war, it speaks volumes. And I get it, right? I mean, the 9/11 hijackers, a lot of them were carrying Saudi passports. I think most of them were all Saudis, if memory serves. But, but look, I mean, I know, but just can you imagine if 20 Americans got together and did something heinous and holding America responsible for it? I mean, they were funded, of course, by, the story. I don't have to get into it, but these are the kind of silly things that people say, but they were the Saudis. How can we be friends with the Saudis? Like, it's important. It's important to find common ground with countries, and we become, by extension, stronger. And if we follow down the Bush path or the Obama path or whatever the hell meandering, knock-kneed somnambulist path of the Biden administration, whatever we end up down, okay? If we follow those paths toward, picking winners and losers based on ideology, if it's just, and in the process, foregoing relationships that can help our country make us stronger, I think that's a fool's errand, right? So this is just a look. I mean, it is what it is. All right, I got to take a break. They're frowning at me over there. Sam Rajovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Behind the What's Right microphone this hour brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust if you get into an accident. 702-820-1234. That's the number. 702-820-1234. Offices right here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and California, because you deserve what's right. Well, perplexing doesn't even begin to cover it. And by the way, folks, on the subject of this book on Biden that Jake Tapper has out, we cannot allow the media to now, at zero cost, okay, zero political cost, to absolve themselves of their lies and deception over the last 4 years. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. So, Tapper's book is out. It's coming out here, going through some of interviews, basically, with people that were in the Biden administration, and even some reporters who had an opportunity to be face-to-face with the president, former president, during his term in office, are coming out with all sorts of great stories. For example, let me pull one out here. Apparently, Biden and his during his debate prep leading up to the disastrous 2024, June 2024 debate against Donald Trump was snoozling. He was sleeping, taking naps during prep. His advisors, quote, blocked out substantial time to prep over several days. This was up in Camp David, which is the presidential cabin right up there in the mountains of Maryland. Biden showed up after a trip to Europe, the D-Day trip, remember, where he was sitting around, wandering around, mouth agape. He was rusty and exhausted. This is according to the original Sin book, co-authored by Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper. I saw another excerpt from this. Clooney, apparently, when did that fundraiser, Clooney says that Biden didn't recognize him. But Biden didn't recognize other people. Jake Sullivan, who's a longtime aide, Kate Bedingfield, halfway through Biden's term, these people said that Biden couldn't recognize who they were, couldn't recall their names. Can I just say something? They're all coming out with this now. Tapper's got this book. They're all going on the record. They're talking about this stuff. It's criminal, right? Particularly the people who were inside the administration, who owed America a duty to, quote unquote, stand up for the Constitution. They're always reminding us of that. These are the people that applauded as traitors within Trump's first administration, came forward with lies and innuendo about Trump. I mean, not even half-baked, fully made up things that were used to initiate proceedings against Trump, removal proceedings, right? Getting him booted out of office. The same people that were cheering that on were sitting quiet as Biden is drooling through the presidency, signing his name to documents, etc. If Biden had been reelected, okay, would any of these people say anything? This book wouldn't be coming out. Tapper wouldn't be writing a Woodward-type expose against a sitting Democrat president. Biden is out. He got defeated. Well, Kamala Harris got defeated, but Biden's essentially done, right? Everybody knows he's not going to run for re-election. So he's not going to be a political force. And certainly, if anything, Democrats now are motivated to remove him, to turn on him, to make sure he doesn't come back or try to stage a political comeback, because they want someone who can win the election. So really, it's not even that it comes at a zero cost. Now it benefits Democrat members of the media to come out and put a shiv, a final dagger in the back of Joe Biden. If you'll, some of you have listened to me for a while. If you remember, at the onset of the Biden term, a couple of things stand out. One, I told, one thing I said, and we should probably, Robbie, find it somewhere in the archive, because I remember a couple of times mentioning how, if things are going to have to really, maybe just the silver lining to Trump losing and Biden coming in is that things will really have to get bad in order for America to come to its senses. And that certainly has transpired. The second thing that I said is that they are going to jettison Biden the minute he stops being useful. Now, I'll admit, I thought it was going to be sooner. And the reason it wasn't sooner is because as soon as Kamala Harris got into office, they realized she was a blithering idiot. And everybody hated her. Legitimately, the people inside the Biden administration, the adults in the room running the show, despised Kamala Harris and her inner circle. Had Kamala Harris been an ounce brighter, a little bit more accommodating, kinder, more thoughtful, less pompous, less arrogant, I guarantee you they would have shuffled Biden out and started leaking these stories way earlier. Jake Tapper might have even come out with this book 2 years ago. It would have been timed to get him out of the race. But they were panic-stricken about the prospect of Trump 2.0. And they pulled out all the stops. And now they want to go mea culpa. Oh, no, oh, my goodness, I feel so bad. We feel so bad. Penance. This isn't penance. They're just making sure Biden doesn't come back. They're making sure that 2024 doesn't happen again. They all despise Trump. They haven't embraced the light, the truth, or anything like that. These people can never be trusted. And it is more than just a desire, an effort by the corporate media to rehabilitate itself and to regain some support. It's more than that. That's not even it. These are people that are still 100% dedicated to being Democratic Party propagandists. And to that end, they want the Biden machine, everybody by they want to burn it to the ground, and they want to install a new outsider candidate, which I suspect, of course, will be Gavin Newsom. And I'm saying that now in May of 2025, so we'll see how right I am. Now, speaking of Gavin Newsom, I don't know, Robbie, if you've made this observation, but Biden is a white, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is a white male. And if this whole situation with David Hogg, vice chair of the Democratic Party, is foreshadowing, it's not going to be good for Gavin. Let's talk about it. Top of the hour when we return. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. here on News Talk 840 KXNT. So I am certain that you have heard about a development within the Democratic Party. Now, sometimes, folks, news comes out, bad news, about people. And by virtue of bad things that these people have done, you think to yourself, maybe, that it's too bad that bad things happen to them. David Hogg was ousted from his position as vice chair of the DNC. This happened late yesterday. And as I understand it, and by the way, first, honestly, I thought that this was, when I saw it on Twitter, I saw it appear on X, and I could have sworn, Lakin, that it was a joke, okay? Like, I thought that it was a conservative gag that somebody was, like a Babylon Bee type of thing, okay? But he was ousted because they found there was a procedural irregularity with his appointment. So put it another way, they voided the election, the selection of David Hogg, because the DNC broke procedure. Now, what is that procedure? Okay. Apparently, they did not follow the party rules on gender diversity. The losing candidate brought a challenge. Kaylin Free argued that the DNC improperly combined questions and tallied votes, making it harder for a woman to win the vice chair role. So now the resolution awaits a full DNC vote, could lead to a new election with the same candidates, and could very well see Hogg being permanently ousted from the position. He could also get reelected, okay? So, I'm just bringing this up. Hold on, I'm just bringing this up. I'm telling you, this is what it is. The white guy, got in, and it's a problem, and the DNC actually seriously is telling people, our bad. We didn't adequately consider the minority status of the other contenders. It couldn't happen to nicer people, okay? That's my takeaway. My other takeaway is, do you think this party is going to find its way before the midterms? And second question, is it going to even matter? All right, so there's two separate things. Everything I look at politically right now between here and the midterms is about the midterms. Why? Because I've already mentioned to you that I think that the congressional election that will happen a year from November is critical, because if there's a power shift in the Capitol, if Democrats win either of the two chambers, but particularly the House of Representatives, then the Democrats could band together and actually push forward on articles of impeachment against Donald Trump. They will do that. If they come to power, they will do it. Now, will they actually get 2/3 of the votes to oust Trump in the Senate? I don't think so. And if they oust Trump, they're going to get JD Vance. So, I mean, just crazy. But I'm just telling you, that's what happens. Now, it'll slow Trump down. Instead of going to Saudi Arabia and talking peace to the Middle East and solving problems, he's going to have to deal with an impeachment proceeding. Okay? So no, I'm just telling you, that's what's going to happen. So we don't want that. So I look at through the prism. Now, I don't think that the Democratic Party can connect with voters doing this kind of nonsense. I think all of this racialism has jumped the shark. It's history. It's passé. People are not into it. So I'm just saying. No. I'm just saying. I think people are done with it. Now, how is it going to matter in individual races in the midterms? Well, it come down to certain candidates, of course. But I mean, I think that the Democratic brand is toast. What do they have? They're reduced to storming ICE facilities, right? I was talking today with Alan Stock, like I always do every Tuesday morning, and he asked me about this assault. There's Congresswoman and a couple of her cohorts. They go over to an ICE detention facility, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Yes, not an ICE making ICE. Okay, DHS. They go in, they storm the facility, and one of the Congresswomen there attacks a guard. And she's rather rotund, and the assault, sort of smothers this guy. And it's all on tape. Now, obviously, it's a performative stunt. Now, is that winning people over? Are there people in the middle who voted for Trump, who didn't vote for Trump in 2020? Are those people now going to vote for a Democrat congressman where they live because they think that Trump has gone too far in immigration? So I think it's all dictated by Trump. I think it's all dictated by the National Committee. I think the Republicans in Congress need to get off their rumpuses and embrace 110% Trumpism, because clearly Trumpism is much more popular than whatever the hell it is that these Democrats are doing on the other side of the aisle. It's astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Can you imagine? Right. So they're picking people based on race. We're beyond this. It's 2025. That's over. And the number one candidate that I fear the most on the Democratic side going into 2028, into the presidential election, is Gavin Newsom, who is a rich, white, heterosexual male. Now I'm looking at my team here. I'm going, that's a lot of marks against you. All the liberalism and wokeism of the world will not absolve you of your sins with those negatives. And this is a party that clearly is obsessed with this stuff. What's Gavin going to do? I think he may have to become gay. That's his only option. Or he could perhaps change genders. That too could definitely score some points. He's not going to do that. But notice Newsom is thinking 4 years in advance, and he knows what's going to happen. He knows that the self-parody that the Democratic Party has become is eventually going to go away. There has to be a reckoning on this stuff, and he is smartly getting ahead of it by hosting his little podcast and talking to people like Charlie Kirk, okay, and sitting down with Michael Savage, etc. All right. But I don't know. There's a gap. There's a bridge between where they are today, kicking out David Hogg because he's not female or dark enough, and where Gavin Newsom thinks that the party's going to be by 2028, which might just end up being, frankly, wishful thinking. Sam Rajovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. You're listening to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam and Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Rajovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. So speaking of race, if we're going to have a conversation about David Hogg getting removed from his position at the DNC, he's still a Democrat. They didn't kick him out of the party. He can get deported out of the Democratic Party, but he did get removed from his position as vice chair, where, of course, he had been drawing some criticism from people, from prominent Democrats, including James Carville, the raging Cajun. By the way, I read somewhere, and I don't know if this is true, but James Carville and Tim Walz, that Tim Walz, right, governor of Minnesota, and almost vice president. Put me in, coach. Tim Walz. So he apparently, they both, Carville and Walz, went to the DNC and was like a champion. It argued the case for keeping Hogg. But Hogg was just too white to remain in his post. So all of this is going on. And it's real, by the way. It's not a parody. It's not from the Babylon Bee. It's a real news story. All this is going on. And at the very same time, there is another situation developing, parallel in time. And that is the arrival yesterday of white South Africans, whom Trump has invited into the country. A couple months ago, Trump signed an executive order that prioritized the resettlement of white South Africans, specifically Afrikaners, through the U.S. refugee program. So yesterday, a group of about 50 of these folks arrived in Virginia on a charter flight. They were welcomed by the Deputy Secretary of State, granted refugee status under an expedited process, and they're here, and the left is losing their minds. What are we doing? See, Trump wants white people in there. He's deporting the brown people and he's importing the white people. Matt Walsh said a funny thing. He goes, now you know that actually the Great Replacement theory is right. But here's what he said. Yeah, this is Matt Walsh tweeted this out yesterday. The Great Replacement is real. If you had any doubt, the story about the South African refugees ought to clear it up for you. The left wants unchecked third world migration because they want to make America less white. That's it. It's that simple. That's why they oppose the white refugees. Because, of course, the white refugees defeat the whole purpose of the program. Now, I don't know if I agree or disagree with Matt Walsh. I'm just putting it out there as very plausible. I will tell you something that I think is more real than what Matt is saying. And I mean this is no criticism of Matt Walsh, but I want to put a finer point on this. The Democrats want dependence. They want immigrants who need the government. They want broke people who are doing bad things that get caught up in the system and need ultimately the largesse of the state to make things happen. That's the issue. It's not a race issue in my mind. These white South Africans, I mean, you want to see a statistic. South Africa, by the way, South Africa, the government and factions within the government have absolutely targeted white farmers in Africa. Now, these white farmers in South Africa produce 95% of their corn, 98% of the wheat, 97% of their cotton, 97% of their citrus, 99% of their tomatoes. You go on and on. 66% of their cattle, 89% of their wool. These are productive people. These are successful people. These are hardy people. Their presence in South Africa goes back to the 17th century and predates the African tribes. This is an important point, by the way. Zimbabwe, a country under former dictator Robert Mugabe, did exactly this. They kicked out white farmers, confiscated lands, and threw the country into absolute poverty. That's a fact. So Trump is bringing over grateful, hardworking, independent immigrants who are going to come here and work their asses off. That's the principal difference. I kind of think, taking race out of it, there's a big difference between importing MS-13 gang members and hardworking farmers. By the way, didn't they keep telling us? I just did an interview a couple months ago when this was all breaking, the news story of here. Dana over at Channel 13 here in Las Vegas was like, "Oh, Sam, so who's gonna pick the strawberries and everything?" Well, good. Let's import some white South African farmers. There we go. Problem solved. Americans aren't going to pick cotton or pick whatever we pick out in the fields of strawberries, grapes, right? The wine industry. Who's going to pick the grapes? Who's going to pick the avocados? Who's going to do, well, all right, got the South Africans. But I want to say that you've got to listen. MSNBC is absolutely melting down over this. Melting down. And they got... Well, this is, it was just wild. They're absolutely crazy. And they're denying, by the way, that any of this is happening. So here we go. Here's what MSNBC is saying about it.
So deeply and morally wrong-headed and repulsive. These are the descendants of the people who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid. I mean, Trump amazingly called it a genocide, one of the worst lies I've ever heard him say. There's just been a small handful of farmers that have been killed over the past 10 years. No land has actually been expropriated. So it's just a farce and a sham and a moral ugliness. It's like a Batman movie or something where all the bad guys get collected under one roof. A headline from The Onion. I don't even know how to get more extreme than this.
You know, I think it's important for us to understand that the Trump administration is a lot of things. But one thing it certainly is a white nationalist project. And oftentimes we don't want to describe it as such. I'm not reducing it to it because there's greed, there's graft, there's all sorts of things happening around it. But we need to understand the way in which great replacement theory is driving this. There's a sense in which the immigration policy is all about demographic shifts. There's a sense around the assault on voting rights and civil rights. It's all about who will have the decision-making power to determine who will run the country. And here, this idea that the republic must remain a white nation is evidenced in this move, which is so explicit that it cannot be denied. And so when we don't describe it for what it is, we become, in an ironic way, complicit in what they're doing. It's a white nationalist agenda, it seems to me.
You know what I'm going to ask you? Where are the Democratic voices offering a different message to the world about who America is today, right now, as this is happening?
Where are the Democratic voices on this? Gosh forbid. I saw immigrants lining up at the airport, getting off the plane. They're holding American flags. Hell's bells. I mean, this is what we want. God, I mean, I guess it turns out that the Democratic Party doesn't want immigrants like my parents. Not because my parents are bad people, not because my parents are at all times law-abiding citizens, not because my parents intended to come here and not be on welfare and work and pay taxes, not because that's not, the Democratic Party doesn't like immigrants like my parents and doesn't respect immigrants like my parents because my parents are white. The biggest racists are Democrats. I'm telling you. And yesterday was everything you needed to know about the Democratic Party. They are obsessed to their core with race. Now, if you think that Donald Trump is a white supremacist and that this is a white supremacy administration, then you need to get your head examined. It's absurd, okay? And they know it's absurd. It's all demagoguery. But what they are getting at, what they do believe in their core, is that diversity is everything. And for you and I and the rest of people out there who have common sense, for us, the contents of our character, this is Martin Luther King going back to, what we were all taught in school. The content of our characters, our intelligence, our capacity, our soul, right? That's what matters, not our color of our skin. The entire civil rights movement has been turned upside down, and the current Democratic Party wants everything to be based on immutable characteristics, right? No substance. You can never forget this, folks. Never, ever forget this. Okay, quick break here, bottom of the hour. Be right back after this. Sam Rajovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Tuesday, May 13th. By the way, inflation came in lower than expected. Grocery prices fell the most in nearly 5 years, and the folks over at JP Morgan have now withdrawn their prediction of a recession. These are interesting developments. Now, I want to point something out about the recession, because I'm not entirely surprised by that, but I have to say I do believe, and I said this at the time leading up to the election, that our country was, in fact, in a recession already, certainly leading up to the election. And then it was, we were in it, but for the interventions of Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell, of course, the Treasury Secretary and the Fed, and of course, the media carrying water for Biden, desperately trying to keep Biden and Kamala Harris politically viable through the election. So, now we're in a recovery mode. Obviously, economies are very much driven by sentiments, right? Feelings, vibes of how people are perceiving the likelihood of the economy growing. Trump is making people feel good. And what he has demonstrated, for example, this week with the tariffs, is that he is willing to be reasonable. And he's also able to get the Chinese to the table. He's able to get the Chinese to negotiate. So this is all really good. I saw somewhere, too, an interesting development that there were McDonald's was going to hire 375,000 people. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I of course, I was listening to the news here. Don't know if it's real. It's CBS, so it could all be made up. But Microsoft is cutting back. Microsoft is making dinosaur products. I don't know. When someone sends me a Microsoft Teams request, I groan. I don't know. Some of you are out there in business and use, video conferencing software. I know, I hate to say it, but Zoom is the gold standard, right? Zoom is just easy. Teams is clunky. I never can sign on very quickly. I have like three different accounts. It never remembers the right one. It always asks me to sign in as a new. It's just a mess. It's a mess. The audio quality isn't good on it. So I'm just pointing out, I'm not surprised that Microsoft, and of course, I don't know where Microsoft is with AI. I don't think they're leading in that at all. So anyway, I'm just pointing out that things are looking good. Why is McDonald's? It's interesting. McDonald's is hiring so many people, especially probably not hiring them in California. Well, I mean, what is it? $20 an hour is the new fast food minimum wage in California. I mean, companies they're closing stores in California. but maybe elsewhere in the country. And again, people have been, there is no question, are hurting economically. And so cheap food, reasonably priced food, is going to be in demand. So anyway, I just was pointing that out. And again, all of the terrible hand-wringing about the economy, all of the terrible hand-wringing about the China tariffs. And I mean, who was it? Was it Jim Cramer? CNBC host Jim Cramer, who is wrong about everything to the point that whatever he says, the opposite has become true. It's called inverse Cramer. He said that this was going to be a 1987 style crash that we would see in the month of April. And, indexes ended up higher beginning of May to beginning of April than, it was all of it was absolute nonsense. So I'm just, look, all of this is happening. Meanwhile, right, Trump is in Riyadh. He is getting out of Air Force One. He's got the horses accompanying him to the Saudi palace. And this, the day and a half before, you had this ridiculous incident with, I know I didn't mention it yesterday because so much going on, but Starmer, Keir Starmer of Great Britain, the prime minister, socialist commie pinko, Mr. Merz from Germany, and President Macron of France coming back from Kiev in the capital of Ukraine. They're coming on a state train. This is a fancy railroad car that looks to be something almost sort of like a Bond villain type car. I'm looking at it. They're sitting at a conference table and they suddenly see the media there, and they've got some trash sitting on the table, and they kind of just start to hide it. And some people, I'm not a drug user, so I can't tell you this certainly, but it appears that it is cocaine paraphernalia. Now, where did this story gain traction? This story started picking up attention on X, on Twitter. And it reminded me, this is why, folks, in the last gasps of globalism, in the last moments of these liberal dictatorships in Western Europe, in Canada, and elsewhere in the developed world, the last gasps of these regimes will be to prevent people from speaking out on X. Now, I don't know. I can't tell you. Look, I don't. Some people swear, oh my gosh, that's stuff you use to take cocaine. I can't tell you, folks. I literally couldn't be more clueless on this. But I'm looking at the video right now. Like it, I'm looking at it. I see, he sees a little piece of trash. Why not leave? I mean, they've got stuff on the table. Why hide that little baggie? And he literally, he's like smiling. He's smiling, and he goes, this is the president of France, Macron, and he takes the baggie and he sort of like pulls it off the table and then puts it in his other hand and hides it under the table. You remember, we don't have this video here. I need to pull this up at some point. There was a great moment where Macron, who is a very wealthy man, lives an incredible lifestyle. He was talking about people's basically needing to cut pensions or something, some public benefits in France. And he was on television making the argument. When he realized, and I have a nice watch here, pulling it up, where he realized he was wearing a fancy watch. So what did he do? As he's talking on TV, this guy could be a pickpocket. He literally just puts his hand under the desk, and he's in a television studio, puts it under the desk, and then he just does one of these things. He just takes the watch, and the next frame, he's got his hand free and clear of the watch. The watch is now somewhere in his pocket. Yeah, he's like a little magician. So I had a buddy of mine whose grandpa was like this, had, the sleight of hand thing when it came to Costco and the free samples. My buddy's grandpa, this guy could go up and find a free sample. He just would put his hand across and take 3 samples when you're only supposed to take 1. Just go in there. That's what Macron's doing with this little baggie, whatever it is. I think there's something to it, but the story really is this is why these guys all want to ban X. Because this is how the truth gets out. Or maybe it's not the truth, but at least we're talking about it. There's people on X criticizing it. Come on, people, it's not cocaine, it's a piece of trash. Then there's people saying, it's coke. And 2 sides are going at it, and we're having a debate. This is good, right? This is what it ought to be. But the globalists don't want a debate. The globalists want to tell us how things are through their approved sources of information. Now, I'll give you a great example of this recently. Remember, last week, Trump goes to the White House. Trump has Mark Carney, a new prime minister of Canada, come to the White House. So Carney is there, the Canadian prime minister, and I don't know, we went through it. I played the clips. I showed you the video. Carney spoke for, 3 minutes out of 40. He looked like he was sitting there getting, he was visiting. It looked like a little boy visiting the principal, okay? Was not a good look for Canada, for Carney, for all these people who were, 4 weeks ago shouting about Canadians, keep your elbows up. But the mainstream media in Canada called it a rousing success. They completely lied about how Carney did. They praised him. They said all these beautiful things about Mark Carney. And this is what they want. I mean, Twitter, even proud Canadians were like, well, that was an embarrassment. But the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation did just one fawning piece after another about how great Mark Carney did. And look, this is why nobody trusts the mainstream media in the U.S. We don't trust them because we have alternative sources. And the globalists, my point, the globalists want to do away with the alternative sources because they don't want you and me to know the truth. Sam Murjovsky, News Talk 840, the What's Right show's brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. In a crash, call Sam & Ash 702-820-1234 because you deserve what's right. Hi, Sam Murjovsky here, behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Just looking at some video here of Trump being driven around the birthplace of Saudi Arabia by the Crown Prince himself. It looks like they're in some kind of a golf cart. It's a bro fest, and it's good for America. This on the heels of a rousing speech. So here on the What's Right show, I try to not just tell you things. I try to show them as well. And I know on the radio, it's a little tricky to do this. Those of you who have the show, What's Right show on Spotify can find this quite easily and see it along with me. But I'm going to describe it. Those of you who are audio only, don't worry. Theater of the mind. Here's a video. Lakin, thank you for uploading this for me because this is the moment that the suspicious baggie of white powder, perhaps left behind by Hunter Biden, we don't know if Hunter was present, in the train car where the leaders of France, Germany, and Great Britain were traveling back from a visit in Ukraine. I want to play this for you, okay? Here's a video. Okay, so hold on. Let's cue the tape. Okay, that's Mertz, Keir Starmer going around to his spot. The Prime Minister of Great Britain came late to the party. He was not there. He was not there originally for the cocaine. Okay. But you see now there's this little baggie there. And Macron, the president of France, sits down. Now they've got cameras rolling. And, there's that little baggie disappears. Macron's got it in his left hand. They're taking some pictures. Then he puts it in his right hand, and now he's reaching over and puts it in his pocket. I'm not going to relitigate. That's what I share the video with you, okay? Now, a day later, this here is the President of the United States arriving in Saudi Arabia. Now, it's, okay, this is just, I don't have any audio here, but literally he's walking down the stairs. You've got the Regal airplane in the background. And when you get down to the ground, there is MBS, the ruler of Saudi Arabia, de facto head of state, greeting his friend. There it is, on the tarmac. Pomp and circumstance, okay? American flag, band playing. Here's another edition. Here's, well, this is a different one here. Well, we're not gonna play that one. Okay, so what am I getting at here? This is these European leaders that are supposedly going at it without the U.S., they look like bozo clowns, whether it was a baggie of Coke or a Kleenex. They look like bozos. They're like three little kids sitting at a little table. Oh, hey, we're here. And what are they doing? What are they achieving? What have they done to end the war? What have they done to be relevant? Nothing. Every story that you read in the mainstream media about, oh, America has given up her rightful place as leader of the free world and Europe is going at it alone. Man, Europe can't even fix its own problems in her own backyard. And these idiots are more responsible than anything for what this has created, for creating this mess, right? I mean, these are all open borders guys. You know, Keir Starmer is Mr. Open Borders. And he's just now, they're starting now to like, oh, we gotta make some rules. They don't want rules. They want unfettered immigration. They want to bring in dangerous people into the country. They want people afraid. They want businesses to shut down. They want a society that is more dependent on the state. And then they will, and their friends will have more political power. So this is the reality of it. And I will peruse now the cable networks and get home at night and start watching what people are saying. And it's the lies and deliberate misinformation to the extent that I've got to assume some of these people are smart enough to actually see what is going on is astounding. It's unbelievable. And it's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I'm telling you, Trump is succeeding. And I would tell you if I didn't think that this was the case, but Trump is succeeding in ways I couldn't even imagine. And I would honestly be celebrating if Trump had accomplished half of what he's done so far. They want Trump in 100 and what today is 14 days being in office, 114 days in office. And we have major movements in foreign policy. We're encircling Iran by getting rid of all of its proxy fighters. We're making inroads with Saudi Arabia. If you're Iran and you had the last administration sending you billions of dollars and whispering sweet nothings in your ear, and the new administration, Donald Trump 2.0, comes into power, and in the first 100-odd days makes it a point to do a lavish, ostentatious even, over-the-top friendly trip to Saudi Arabia, a dominant power in the region and an enemy of Iran, what do you think that message is that is sent to the mullahs of the Iranian regime? I think they're ready to crap a brick is what I think. I mean, I think that this is absolutely horrifying and terrifying for them. Absolutely. And this is all part of the greater strategic play that's occurring right now. And Trump's doing it. It's happening. And it's, it's absolutely astonishing. And the Democrats on the flip side are And the globalists around the world they all look so powerless and weak. And the Democrats are leftists here in the country, of course, obsessed with race at every turn and literally silly, stupid things that do not matter and that are off-putting to voters, 1,000%. So, I think, look, I mean, this is all great news, and we got to keep, my eye remains, and I know it's just May of 2025. I know we have a little ways to go. But one of the things that I want to see from Republicans, my gripe right now is with Republicans in Congress, because Republicans in Congress need to get their acts together and they need to support Trump. They need to get legislation across the line. They need to embrace the agenda. They need to pass bills, codify the president's executive orders into law. If they fail to do that, it's at their own electoral peril. Now, I'm convinced there's a number of Republicans in D.C. that would love nothing more than to be in the minority just long enough to teach Donald Trump a lesson. They are real Judases in the Capitol on the Republican side. Make no mistake about it, we need to watch very carefully at who those people are, follow them closely, and they need to be removed from their positions as best as possible. All right, friends, it's time to go. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you then. Sam Rajovsky, News Talk 840. My email, any questions, comments, concerns, sam@whatsrightshow.com. And of course, on X, follow me on X, on Twitter, @whatsrightsam. All right, be well out there. Keep your chins up. We've got this. Sam Rajovsky, over and out.